Good evening, everyone. This video is going to be a support session and trading review for April the 12th, 2023. So I had kind of a rough day today, or rough morning anyway. It kind of that completely straightened it out south, but I did manage to do pretty well after my disaster trade. So let's get through it, and I'll kind of tell you some of my thoughts about that in just a moment. So let's just kind of review this. This is today. So as you can see, big tail right after we had the CPI news. The CPI news was kind of favorable, and it even had a lot of people saying that there may not be that much of a need for much more of an interest rate increase. The odds of a May interest rate increase decreased, but anyway, they ended up turning it around and have a pretty big down day compared to where it started. So let's take a look at the big picture chart. There wasn't much of a movement prior to the CPI data, right? So here's the limits of the overnight, and then here's the CPI data right here, right? So not much movement prior to the CPI data at 5:30, and then boy, really rocketed it up in just a few minutes. This peak is only 5 minutes after the news, and then it started rolling off to the point where about here is where the market opened, kind of moved up, and during this move is where I had my problem. And then I did trade some more. We'll get into that in a minute. I didn't call everyone because I had already had a fairly difficult trade that I bailed out of at that particular point, which we'll get into. Alrighty, let me get my ticker going here. So here's the open. Didn't do anything here. Took the first trade here and was out there, right? And then I took another trade because the market was in a pretty good mood. So and the volume was better today. Better, not certainly the last few days, but it wasn't high volume, and that's going to be kind of a theme as I kind of talk about kind of what I'm going to do about this little problem. So took another long trade here. It was kind of breaking through the 2x20, but that didn't work. Came down, and I reversed down in here, right at about the wrong time, right? It comes back up. So it really wasn't trending at all. You can see the EMA is like all over the place. So then I reversed here, right? So a loss from here, right, and a loss from here, and I'm not loving life too terribly much. All right, so let's move over to see what, and so I really don't like going back and forth. You just really lose a lot of ground here. And so somebody else was commenting they were also in this trade. Let's see, they were in this trade, right? But then it didn't go. And so, but I was already kind of upset with reversing so much. And this is the area, right? But I had already gone in and out a couple times. That's the area where I really should have reversed again. At that particular point, right, we're back under the EMA. We're getting expansions down, and now we've broken through the 5-minute moving average. We had touched here. Now we're broken through. So really, if I had reversed anywhere in here, I would have been fine, but I didn't. I because remember the market was reacting very favorably from the CPI news. It just didn't hold. So here's my dilemma. So I'm still long, and I had even added to it. I think at some point. Yeah. Oh yes. See, I added here, right? So I was carrying more than one contract, and so I, so see, I mean, it would have been perfectly fine, perfectly fine. And so it really was getting angry here. So I didn't reverse. I just closed this trade, started over again, and so at that point it was about 648. So you could see my you know my mistake here, right there was the best opportunity. Now here it was already kind of low, but it kind of crashed down again. So even I have these problems occasionally, but I don't know if it's a solution, but I have thought about this some. And so let's see. So now I'm just going to go through kind of pulling out, and I don't think I called all these trades. I was kind of in a hole, and I wanted to kind of work out of it, and I did trade a couple of times even after 12 o'clock. I was missing during the middle part of the day because I had some things I had to go do. So here's a short trade, and that one was out. Here's a long trade, and that one was out. So a lot of trades here, and I don't think I called them all, but I was trying to get back into position here. Let's see. So here's another entry here, right? And some of these are maybe a little bit aggressive, but I was trying to I was out here, and then I got right back into it. I think. Oh no, here I got into it right around here at the volume point of control, and was out here. Then it's coming back up, right? Entered here at the above, and out there, and I'll have a reconciliation here in just a moment. Entered in here and out there, right? So I mean, so after the disaster trade, I'm recovering. Let's see, nothing for a while. It's not doing too much here. Even nothing even here. Waited for a while here. Here's another reverse, but at least I. So this one was here was the time to maybe get into this trade. I waited until it cleared everything, right, but didn't quite make it up. I needed to come back up, and I think it hit the open, and it wouldn't do it. So it came back down, and somewhere right around here, I reversed in, added, and then added again, and then I was out of the trade there. I know, so and I hate when I'm a little bit mad and I'm going after the market. I kind of call that revenge trading, and I do sometimes do better. And I'll talk about that a second. And not necessarily revenge trading, but what happens when I have had a losing trade. So here's another one. Lots of space here, short and out. Let's see, another one short. This one is great. That's great. This one is a little bit aggressive, right? It was moving down, and really it came back up, right, to the 2x200, right? A little rejection at the 2x100, so I went short and out again. All right, so let's see, that was that one. This one is even more aggressive. So now I'm in the EMA band, right? So that one, I don't really like this one. I mean, I'm okay with that one. This one is a little bit more aggressive, and so I'm out here. All right, so this one at least had a pullback, into the pivot point, some rejection at the pivot point, breaking down back down under yesterday's close again, and I'm out there. And then let's see, that may have been it for a while because I had some. Well, no, I'm not quite done yet. All right, pull back up to the minute average EMA kind of area. Another expansion here, so I'm short and out. Continuation, pretty big candle here, so short and out. So I'm making ground. I mean, I made probably, well, no, I made, but by the end of the day, I had regained over 20 points. So too bad I just didn't get 20 points and not have that losing trade, but that's a different scenario. All right, back up to mid S1 here, short again and out. Back up to the EMA, rolling over, short again and out. But I mean, it was still a losing day, so I still have to think about things here a little bit. Let's see, now that may have been the end of it, because otherwise, if I was still trading, I'm sure I would have been throwing something around here, but I don't see any other trades. And here we come into 8:30, and I'm for sure working on a different thing at that particular point. All right, so what do I make of all this? So I did have to think about this some, and I had already kind of mentioned it before. So here was the problem. Right, so on light volume days, I said we were really going to not trade very much before 7, right? Maybe trade the open and maybe trade the push time frame. And today's volume was more, and we had CPI data, but really it kind of for a long time, well, at least for the first 20 minutes or so, it kind of behaved as a relatively low volume day. And once I initiate trading, now I'm in trading mode, right? So once I initiated that trade, all right, well, now I'm looking for trades, and I'm expecting some, because the volume was better, I'm expecting some continuation, right? There was no continuation here, right? A reversed, no continuation there, right? And reversed again, and no continuation there, right? So, and let's take a look at these time frames. All right, so there's the first trade, right? And then from there to, let's call it about there, right? The market did a whole lot of nothing, right? It was just bouncing around in and out, not with any particular direction. But I kind of had this opinion. CPI data was kind of positive. The market had been much higher, and it initially tried to go up, but it wasn't follow through. And then ultimately it showed its. Let's also do this. So there's the top of this range, right? Here's kind of like the bottom of that range, right? I can't draw a straight line. So it really wasn't doing much. And then ultimately here, it really broke down, right? It had everything behind it, double expansions, lots of volume going through, right? This is the area, in reality, right? This is the reality that is where you would like to take a trade, right? And it would have been a very fast, very easy trade. So with that in mind, what really, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to talk about it in the room tomorrow. I've already talked about it, many times. Most of the time, my first trade is positive, right? Sometimes I have to add to it, sometimes not. But I usually can get the first trade under my belt. But that puts me into looking at every candle and ready to push the button mode, right? And we all know I like to push the button. I don't have complete control over my finger, and that's just a problem with trading sometimes. And like I have mentioned many times before, some traders wait till after 7 to start trading. So, and as you can see, and I'm not quite sure if I'm there yet, but as you can see, right, a trend had clearly developed. And then if we get to 7, here's 7, right? So, here's maybe kind of like a push time frame. I took that. Here's a push into right after the 7 o'clock time frame. There wasn't any news, right? And then push through there, a reaction after the 7 o'clock. So clearly, after 7, I did very well. And typically, and it's not as though I sometimes make a mistake after 7, and I did that in the last few days, right? I chased a trade a little bit too aggressively right after 7 o'clock news, and it didn't go anywhere. So yes, I can't. You can still make a mistake after 7 o'clock. I can, without doubt. But usually, if you dig yourself a little bit of hole, in my opinion, it's early, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of ban myself from trading until it has kind of picked a direction and kind of broken out of the range of the first 10 minutes or so ish, right? Or at least broken out of the range. And that might be, in this case, it was going to be, it was about what, 6:41, right? So that would leave, time to maybe take a trade, maybe a push trade, and then go into 7. And then so the big picture is most of my trading is probably going to be after 7, right? And I'll still try to wait for the best trades, but I'm going to try to eliminate all of this, right? And it's going to be a little tough for me because, as you know, many times by the time we get to 7 o'clock, I've already made 5-6 points, and sometimes 7, and then maybe a couple trades after 7 o'clock, and I'm 7, 8, 9, right? And I'm looking to stop trading, and those days feel pretty good. But then you get into a day like today, right? And this happens, in my opinion, earlier in the day when the market hasn't really decided what it's going to do. It's kind of digesting the overnight moves, maybe digesting some earnings reports, and we are going to be entering into earnings seasons. I'm going to take the big picture perspective like some other traders do and let the market do its thing for longer than I normally do. Now, sometimes, right, the market is and I've seen these in history as well. Sometimes the market is got an opinion, and so if you were to look at it, overall, the coming into the last few minutes, right, the market was kind of in a down mood, right? So it was predominantly spending some time here. The VWAP kind of held itself, right, and then it gets a little crazy, right? So, but it did not continue that way and kind of broke out a little bit there. So, I'm going to talk about this tomorrow morning, and I'm going to try to control myself. We'll talk. If this becomes a thing, we'll talk. I still think we'll open up the room at the same time, and talk about the news, talk about the market, talk about the conditions, talk about the volume, and to see if trends are have already developed and looks like it's continuing. But most of the time, then the market's kind of quiet before the open, and it just kind of plays around and then picks a direction. And if we don't like it, then we may not trade that much that day, or wait until even later, after 7, where things do it. I mean, if I would, and if I said, and I've said this before, if you consistently get 4 to 7 points without the problem days like I had today, I'd be perfectly fine. Be perfectly fine with that. And I wouldn't have to use as much of the account occasionally if I become obstinate, for instance, and I get into a fight. And I don't really want to do that. And I don't want to go back and forth either. So waiting for the market to kind of develop a picture and then start trading is going to be better, which means I'm going to have to give up on that first trade of the day. And it'll be a little bit hard for me, but I'm going to try it for a while. Because like I said, once I take that first trade and I got a profit, I'm looking for the next trade, and I may be missing a big picture about what the market is or isn't doing. And so I need to get basically I need to get some experience at that, right? So get that kind of trading disciplines into my brain, right? Because haven't really ever completely implemented this. I kind of like to push the button, and so I'm going to have to refrain from pushing the button early in the day. And then, like you said, right, I was in revenge mode today, but I was in revenge mode in a time period when the market was already moving as well. Right, so it still wasn't a huge volume day, so it wasn't really a breakout volume kind of a day. But it did have a pretty big high-low range, and took advantage of that ultimately. But it's hard to dig yourself out of those kind of holes, and I did not completely dig myself out. All right, does that make sense? What do you think? Okay. I haven't. Okay, in terms of the new software, this this new band. The only change that I am working on right now is this new band, right? And this new EMA band, I haven't released just yet. So you've still got the old EMA band. Other than that, everything is exactly the same. So I want to try one more thing on the EMA band. I don't know if it'll be. I've already tried one thing on the EMA band, and that I didn't particularly like. So I'm going to try one other thing as well on the EMA band calculation, and I'll see if that works any better. This is already kind of good, right? I mean, especially when, for instance, it comes down and hits in the EMA band, for instance, and there's something down here that it also hit, right? Then it's likely to pop up a little bit, just like it did. Let's just go back in and take a look at that as well. All right, so here it got a little bit mad here, right? It did come down into the EMA band and hit some things. It just took, it came all the way back down again and hit close to the pivot point before it came back up. And I did even take it because it looked like it was pretty mad. Took a trade and got out in that time frame. All right, so you don't have it yet, so there's really nothing on your chart that you can change just yet. So this is still version, I think this is version 8.8, right? That you have. And there'll be a small change coming up that will be, yeah, you've got version 8.8, and you'll have a version 8.9 at some point in the not too distant future. But right now, about the only thing that's changing is the EMA ban. Get a new EMA ban. Yeah, yeah. This one, this one is the new EMA ban. Are we still? Do you have any other questions other than the new EMA ban? Because that's really the only thing that's changing. Okay. So yeah, stay tuned. Um, so you can always glance over at my chart to see if you're in the new EMA band or not versus the EMA band that you have on your system already. All right. Anything else? If you have time, drop in tomorrow and we'll talk some more. And especially since I'm not planning on trading early in the morning. How price highlights on my chart. Give me an example. On the price column. On the over here on the I see. I know what you're talking about. I think I know what you're talking about. For instance, you're talking about well, that's the price. Are you talking about this as one example? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Ultimately, you really won't need that. This is just reflecting that edge, right? And I still had some work to do that, which is still not complete, right? To get sometimes I let this chart calculate things, and I transfer it over to a different chart, right? And so this was just to help me debug to make sure it was transferring and picking up the correct value. Ultimately, we don't really use that feature, but I mean you could if you wanted to, and you could do that on any indicator, but it's just going to make this a little bit busier. That's some of what the text is. But if you wanted to do that, for instance, and let me just show you on this one, it's called a marker, and I'm going to go to the new EMA band. There it is, format, and if you bring that over to style, right, see the marker here. So if you click on that band high, click on anything, right? So if you click on any marker, highlight the marker, then it's going to start showing up here. But if you get too many of them, it's going to get confusing, right? So for me, I had this, and I'm using it strictly to debug with. And once I have it debugged and working the way I would like it to, then I will take those markers off because I don't really want to see them. Anything else? Okay, good. All right. So have a great rest of your evening. We'll talk some more about this in the morning. So now I know it was when we talked about it before, it's kind of favorable, and some people are more patient than I am. I think in general it would be a good thing. Maybe a little smaller profit on profitable days, but hopefully avoid some problems, those occasional problems early in the morning. We'll talk about it some more tomorrow morning. All right. Have a great evening, rest of your evening, and good night. We'll see you in the morning.